Is Nashville losing its charm? Let's face it, it's the question that so many people are asking now, especially us native Nashvillians. It's on everybody's mind. More and more people know about Nashville. As Nashville has become the it city in the last 10, 15 years, it's the talk of Wall Street Journal, it's Forbes, it's all over the place. But has it lost its charm? Are people packing up and leaving? Now the buzz is changing quite a bit now, and not necessarily for the better. Let's dive into why some folks are saying that they've seen the last best days of Nashville. They're over it and they're heading out. If you've lived in Nashville now for more than 2 weeks and traveled during the busy times of day, you've probably experienced traffic nightmare. With rapid population growth and the inadequate infrastructure, navigating Nashville's roads can be quite tough. And the worst offenders, I-24 near downtown, I-65 during rush hour just as you're coming across from 440 to get to I-65. And that Trinity Lane area is always a nightmare, kind of north of Nashville. And let's not even talk about the 440 construction zones. It's never ending. Almost like Knoxville is never ending when you get over toward campus. But between the never ending road work, because we are still growing and trying to find places, add more interstate access lanes, we have very few public transportation options. We've got a bus line. There's always talk about how to figure out to do some rapid transit, but that's just not happening. So some folks are finding that the cost of convenience of all that traffic just isn't worth it. Sitting in traffic for an hour to go from downtown if you work there, or down to Spring Hill to get back home, or from Brentwood area to get to home if home happens to be up in Mount Juliet, that can take a long, long time, not as the crow flies, but as the traffic rolls during those peak traffic times. And some people are just saying it's not worth it. So if you're moving to the Nashville area, and you may well be ready for a commute of an hour or so. Maybe you're from Boston, New York, Los Angeles, where you're used to standstill traffic and an hour commute time. I promise you, that's not what people expect when they come to Nashville. It certainly isn't what a native Nashvillian expects, and it's quite surprising to us. So really think about what you want that drive time to be when you get here. That'll help us in finding the right home for you based on the distances and the places that you travel on a daily basis. So if you're sitting around talking to someone in Nashville and you happen to be sitting at Hattie B's having chicken, you find out they're from Nashville, ask them, what's the worst thing about the last couple years in Nashville? I promise you, they're going to talk about the traffic, as it's horrendous. And I think it's all just a matter of perspective and where you're coming from. Number 2 complaint, let's get real here. Let's talk about the cost of living. The cost of living in Nashville has skyrocketed. In 2024, the median home price is over $450,000. Less than 7 years ago, it was more like $250,000. That's all a part of becoming that it city that I mentioned before. It's brought people, it's got cost of living increases, a far cry from the affordable city that it once was, and actually a far cry from this city that people touted us as being even 3-4 years ago. Now, during those COVID years, we had an appreciation rate in Nashville, Tennessee in general, in most places, of 20 to 25% for 2 years. So think about it, a 50% increase in price of homes in just a couple years, and now we've pretty much flattened out in many areas, or just a 4 to 5% more normal appreciation. But when the median price of homes is $460,000, that's not an inexpensive place to live. And for us Tennesseans who are natives to here, we are certainly not used to thinking of $200 and $300 a square foot as a normal price per square foot for a home. Pretty much where we are. And renters aren't faring that much better either. The average 1-bedroom apartment, it's a good size apartment, but for rental is running around $1,800 a month if you're inside of the Nashville SMSA. I'm going to come there and I'm just going to rent for a while and it's going to be much cheaper. Well, you might want to double check that. Not so in many cases. So many fewer homes that people expect when they move here. I'm constantly finding people ask me, I want to find a single family home. I'll rent there for a while and then we'll buy. Well, I can promise you there aren't that many homes for rent because there's so much demand for housing, period. and it's not going to be inexpensive. So let's find you that home pretty quickly so we can get you part of the community and investing and getting a part of this appreciation. But it's not just housing prices either. Groceries, dining, even your utility bills are getting steeper. Now, back to comparison to other top 50 tier cities, our utilities are far less expensive. Our taxes, as I'm sure you know, are far less expensive in that we don't have state income taxes, but of course we do have tax on food. Our real estate property taxes, though, are far less than most places that I'm seeing people move from, maybe Austin, Texas, over in Florida, New York, Chicago, all of these areas where so many people are moving here to escape whatever it is they're trying to escape. They're happy with our property taxes, that's for sure. But who isn't happy? The native Nashvillians. Those rise in prices have increased everything. So what we knew 20, 15, 10 years ago even has really far increased and far outpaced some of the income levels that us native Nashvillians have enjoyed. It's causing a strain. That's one of the other things you're going to hear people talk about. Natives have just been outpriced because of all the newcomers who have come here. So it's not that we don't like the newcomers, it's we don't like what that competition has done for us. So let's talk about noise and overcrowding. Nashville's honky-tonk scene is famous, but for locals, the noise and the overcrowding can be a lot. Let's be real. There's only so many bachelorette parties that one city can handle. Luckily for us, we've got them all the time. They are constant, and they're not where any of us native Nashvillians basically live. It's Lower Broad, it's downtown. No, I will tell you, that's a fun area. My husband and I went last weekend actually, and we did a little shopping at some of the stores that were down there. We stopped at the food hall and enjoyed the scene. People watching is amazing, but as far as a place for native Nashvillians to go, or any Nashvillian, once you've been here more than 2 years or so, 2 or 3 times a year maybe, for football games, for the symphony, to go to the Skirmerhorn, to do some of the fun things occasionally. But as far as spending much time down there, we're not there. But the noise, the traffic, just sheer humanity of people is a lot to handle. Nashville's starting to feel less like home and more like a constant party. And that's not everyone's vibe. It's simple to get away from. Just don't go downtown Broadway. Don't go from Demonbreun all the way down to the riverfront. That's really where all of the happenings is, and it's constant, so it's very easy to get away from, but it's still not the downtown Nashville that I grew up knowing about. It's not the one that many of us know about. So you're going to probably hear a little bit of confusion about that. So what are you going to see when you're downtown Nashville, Lower Broad area? Not many natives, I can promise you that. But when we go, it is kind of fun. It's fun to see how the tourists live and then to get away from it. Just being real. Number 4, loss of small town charm. So once upon a time, Nashville had a very small town charm. The kind of place where neighbors knew each other and local businesses all thrived. They all knew each other. They worked together. But now, gentrification and the urban sprawl have changed the city's personality a little bit. Many long-term residents feel like they don't recognize their hometown anymore. Don't get me wrong, progress can be great. But when historic neighborhoods, some of the historic buildings are being taken down, bulldozed for yet another luxury high-rise condominium or office building, it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. Many of us locals, there's a Facebook group called I Remember When, and we go back and we reminisce about what buildings looked like down on Lower Broad. When we went downtown to go shopping at Harvey's, about the diners that were down there. Satsuma, one of the best ones that people ate and who worked downtown in the early 80s. It was the place where all business people went and you could see each other. It's just not the same place that every time you go somewhere, you know many people. And that was the vibe up until early 2000s. You couldn't go to the grocery without seeing a lot of people that you knew. You couldn't go downtown or do a little shopping without seeing people that you knew. And it's just not that way anymore. So sometimes us natives feel like we're not even in the same city anymore. Again, that's a complaint I heard from my own mother, though, who would be 94 right now. That's what she said when she was in her 50s. So I don't think there's anything new here. It's just progress. And those who have been in one place for such a long time love to see the progress in a way, but boy, it's almost like we don't even recognize our own city. You're going to hear that somewhat. And it's not that we hate the progress. It's not that we hate what's necessarily going on, but we kind of do because that nostalgia. Everything was better way back then, right? Number 5, school and family concerns. For families, schools are often the deal breaker. While some Nashville suburbs have excellent school systems, Davidson County schools struggle with overcrowding, underfunding, and inconsistent ratings. We parents want the best for our kids, absolutely no doubt. Because of the difficulty with some of the Davidson County schools, that's why many people opt to go into some of the other surrounding counties, Williamson County, over in Wilson County, over in Hendersonville, Sumner County. We're opting to move outside of the Davidson County core because there are some good schools. Honestly, there's some very, very good schools. But, with the concentration of new people and the influx of people and the infill properties, there's a lot of overcrowding, and many have elected to move outside into some of the other counties with a little bit better school systems. It's just a reality. It's a shame, which is why when I'm talking to people about thoughts of moving to Nashville vicinity, one of the many things we talk about is the nature of their family. How old are their children? Does the school system matter? Are they going to private or public schools? Give me where on the hierarchy of priorities that school is for you, because that's going to help me in determining the best places to direct you to live. I will tell you that in the last year, and I've been a realtor here for over 30 years, but in the last 2-3 years, I have placed 0 families in Davidson County. People with children have elected to go into Davidson County. They've elected to move into Wilson and Williamson and Sumner counties are the 3 main ones whenever that is a priority for the family. These are why these conversations with us are so important, so I can help figure out your criteria, help you talk through that, and we can get you into the good school system. The last thing I want for you to do is to come here and be flabbergasted that your child doesn't have the school that you are expecting or hoping for. That's why I failed to mention this. I am Susan Bedford. I'm a realtor with eXp Real Estate. I'm a native Nashvillian. My children grow up here. My grandchildren are now here. I'm in the cusp of things, and I want to help you in finding a great home. It's what I've done for the last 30 plus years, and that's why you should give me a call. Do what so many people do. Give me a call. Let's talk about your needs and your specifics, and I can help you find the right home for you. Now, to tell you a story about schools, I had a family who moved here 4 years ago. They didn't have children. They thought they would sometime in the future, but, it wasn't a priority. When you don't have children, you don't know, things change. Just that's the way it is. Things change. Once you have kids, your priorities change a lot. I helped them move just last week because they decided they wanted to go ahead and get their child into good preschools and get situated such that they go all the way through the good new school system that they are in. By the way, they ended up having 2 children within 8 months of moving here to Nashville. Priorities do change. We know what we know. Let's get it figured out as to the exact right spot for you based on today's priorities. Let's get to 6, crime rates. Another growing concern is crime. While Nashville isn't exactly a war zone, the rising crime rates, especially in certain neighborhoods, are enough to make people think twice about staying. Safety is a top priority for everybody. And when people don't feel safe in their communities, they start looking for other options. Now, here's what I can tell you. I've mentioned before, there's a lot of gentrification happening. East Nashville, the way it is now, versus the way it was 12 years ago, night and day differences. Some of the Bordeaux area up in North Nashville. Very many sections on the downside of the river, down toward Antioch, down toward Smyrna. A lot of these areas are certainly being regentrified. Why? Because they're close to downtown. The traffic is not as tough if you're coming from outside of the county. And it has the proximity and the location that people want to be in. So they're getting regentrifying neighborhoods. If those who live in the neighborhoods maybe can make a lot of money for their homes, for them to leave, and then the house to be torn down and something new go on there. But the fact is, where are they going to go? So they're staying. Honestly, you get more crime when there's the possibility of having better loot. That really sounds bad, but it is the truth. I'm not trying to sway anything. It's just the facts. Nobody goes to rob an area that doesn't have anything worth robbing. So when you have that influx and when you have a lot of construction around also, sometimes you also can have some robbery. That's just the way it is. Safety is a top priority. Now, the interesting thing is I just pulled some stats from the years 23 to 24. Our violent crime rates went down in 2024. However, the property crimes absolutely did not go down. My son is an insurance agent. Sadly enough, car theft is huge here. Leave nothing in your car. Leave things locked up. Don't leave anything visible for people to be able to see. Just don't tempt them. But crime is a thing, and inner cities tend to have more crime than as you move outside of that city. So I will have to say that that is one reason that some native Nashvillians are electing to move outside of the county or further away from the inner core, further away from the busyness, the hustle, the bustle, the inner core, and some of that crime to more outlying areas or out of Tennessee completely. So yes, crime has certainly risen in the last couple of years. Crime is certainly in Nashville grown, and it is a concern. That's why you're going to find one of many reasons that you're going to find a lot of Nashvillians, native Nashvillians, who maybe grew up in what was just kind of quiet, sleepy area, Green Hills, with long, low ranch houses and the nice little Green Hills Mall. Moving out of that is too busy. There's too much traffic. There's too many people coming into that area for the big mall and the Nordstrom and all the high profile kind of places. They just want to move away from that, get away from the crime, get away from the petty crime that has increased quite a bit in the Nashville area in the last several years. And please, we're a carry state, but take your pistol in the house. Do not leave it in your car. Number 7, we're going to talk about the cultural shift and political divide. Nashville is experiencing some growing pains that extend beyond the infrastructure and the housing. The city's rapid growth has brought a cultural shift and with some dividing. Longtime locals often clash with newcomers over values, politics, and the soul of the city. It can be a really tough balance. Growth brings opportunity, but that also means change, and that can lead to friction. I think I mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of our historic buildings that we truly love, but putting a historic building or leaving a historic building, which has beautiful architecture in some people's mind, next to the 30, 40-story high-rise all-glass buildings can be an eyesore to some, and it can be fabulous to others. That's where this comes in. Friction, because different opinions. You of course get that in political thought as well. Many people coming to the area or have been here, they live more in the urban core. That area tends to be more purple. When you're in the inner core of the city, inside of 440, out to the Davidson County line, it does tend to be more purple, whereas 10 years ago, we were a red state. So it's tending to shift as new people are coming in. New ideas are coming in, new thoughts of public assistance, new thoughts on crime, all the things that go into a city and all the people that go with it. That's bringing a tough balance, and there is some friction. Again, that's where some people tell me they've moved here, they are moving here to get to a different culture, to get to a different dynamic, that their area has become too something. Whatever the something is that they're trying to get away from, this may be a good fit, it may not be a good fit. I will tell you that the outlying areas outside of Davidson County tend to be more conservative in their thoughts, in their thinking, in preserving history, the historic architectural areas. There are a couple in Davidson County that are keeping things tight and restricted so that you can't just tear down and lose the flavor of the whole neighborhoods. And some areas just don't care. These things can cause friction. It's just a part of life. But as the city has grown, there's a big diversity. There's a diversity of food. There's a diversity of cultures. And it's hard to keep that balance right. Keep your culture, do your culture's thing, but don't step on my culture's thing. And we are seeing some of that tension. The truth is, some people just feel that Nashville is not the city that they grew up in, if they actually did, or even if they came here back in the 80s and 90s, when we were not a top tier 50 city, when we didn't have the opportunity that we do have now. Also, we're just a slower, more laid back, quieter lifestyle. People knew each other. I think that's the biggest thing. At that point, you couldn't go anywhere without knowing somebody you knew. And I hear constantly someone who's been here for a long time saying, I went to Arrington, I went to the winery, I went to Franklin, I went to the grocery store, I went to the symphony, and I didn't see a person that I knew. That's just an odd feeling if you are a native Nashvillian or someone who's been here for a long time. Those are the growth changes. Newcomers, they don't see that as a change at all. So really what I'm saying is, I think the only people who are really moving away from Nashville or thinking, I don't like this anymore, are those who've been here a long time and are not ready for, don't like, and don't want all that change. So where are they going? So many are trading that city life for quieter suburbs or even leaving the state altogether. But I'm not seeing that. I am seeing people move over into Franklin or Murfreesboro, maybe Mount Juliet, over to the lake life of Hendersonville, a lot over to Fairview. Definitely a quiet area that of Williamson County, maybe over to Nolensville, quieter parts of the counties that they already knew and went so well. Or down into Columbia. Small town Columbia today feels an awful lot like Franklin did back in the 70s and 80s. So many are not wanting to leave the state. None of us want to leave the state that we also love. The Four Seasons, the beautiful rolling hillsides, the people. We still are charming, kind people. We still have the politeness. We still take off the hats and do what we should do as Southerners do. But they're finding that their city may have left them and they're going out into some of the quieter areas that is still here in Middle Tennessee. You can find that if that's what you're looking for as well. So is Nashville still worth it? For some, the opportunity, the energy of the city, the possibilities, the business acumen, the entrepreneurial spirit, the beauty, all the things I've said, those outweigh the challenges. But for others, the dream of Music City has turned into more of a nightmare. But at the end of the day, it's about what works for you. Have you thought about leaving Nashville? Are you considering moving here? Drop me a comment. Tell me what you've loved about Nashville. Tell me about what you hope to find here. Tell me about the changes that you've seen since you've been here. That would be interesting too. We all know we've got growing pains. I think we're handling them pretty well, but I'd love to hear from you. Meanwhile, if you're thinking of moving here and I haven't blown it for you completely already, then I suggest you go ahead and download that relocation guide. I'm still updating the one for 2025, but 2024 is just pretty on spot. Download that relocation guide, take a look at it, give me a call. Let's talk about your needs and what I can help you in determining whether Nashville is a good fit. I look forward to having a great conversation with you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.